Oh my god, I need a haircut. Okay. Hi, my name is Matthew, and you might know me as Be Like Boy on TikTok, it's Be Like Boy on Twitter, Be Like _ Matt _ on Instagram, or you might not know me at all. And for those of you who don't, I am a content creator that talks all things World of Wonder and Drag Race, especially that of Drag Race outside of the US. Also, yes, my sweatshirt is torn, don't mention it. And today, for my 11th video ever, we are going to be talking about one of the most infamous moments in Drag Race history. The moment that led to the lowest rated episode of Drag Race ever. The moment that had fans up in arms. And the moment that canceled an entire franchise. You all saw the thumbnail. We, of course, are going to be talking about the elimination of one Keta Minaj on Drag Race Holland Season 2. With the relatively recent start of RuPaul's Drag Race UK vs. the World Season 2, with Keta Minaj being on that cast and her recent elimination on that season, I found that this video would be at least a little bit topical to the conversation. And so I just kind of wanted to jump in here and make a little video about her experience on Holland 2, just for like a small dissection. Now, prior to the official UK vs. the World cast reveal, I was operating under the assumption that most Drag Race fans were not privy to Keta's elimination on Holland 2. And in some ways, that is true. But when the drag detective and I filmed our little cast assessment, he said this.
Prior to the season. I have not watched a single millisecond of Holland, but even I know about her robbery.
Yes, okay. This instance is kind of an example of the absolute ripples that Keta Minaj's elimination sent through the RuPaul cinematic universe. Fans who hardly ever watched the international franchises know the uproar that her dismissal caused, which ultimately led to the show's cancellation. Well, okay, lack of renewal would be more accurate, I suppose. So I thought it would be kind of fun if we delved into this elimination and dissected it. The events leading up to it, the context surrounding it, and the moment itself. This video is for both fans who have watched Holland and fans who have not alike, because there's a lot to cover that everyone can enjoy. I, for one, can say I personally like reminiscing on things that make me angry. So let's get started, shall we? Drag Race Holland Season 2 first premiered on August 6th, 2021 to admittedly minimal noise. Minimal by 2021 standards, I should specify. The season premiered in a year where international Drag Race was a fraction of what it is now. As of August 2021, only 5 seasons of Drag Race had aired that year so far. But despite fewer competitors, for lack of a better term, compared to today's standards, Holland 2 was still the one the fans prioritized the least. Nonetheless, the season chugged along almost inoffensively without getting noticed much by the fanbase. That is until episode 7, the penultimate episode, when Keta was eliminated. As I said earlier, the elimination caused ripples through the fanbase that brought a lot of attention to the show from those who normally wouldn't have paid attention otherwise. And because of that, a lot of people started to look at the season more skeptically. A season that had originally flown under the radar was now under the watchful eye and scrutiny of a vindictive fanbase now vexed by the elimination of a fan favorite and frontrunner. And what they, i.e. we, found were some very blatant flaws that might have originally been dismissed as normal Drag Race riggory, but now under this new lens can be ascertained as pieces that dominoed into Holland 2's failure as a season. I say in the title and introduction of this video that Keta Minaj's elimination was the single thing that got Holland cancelled. And that is true, but more specifically, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. The final nail in the coffin for the franchise. So with that in mind, before we look at Keta's elimination more concretely, I want to backpedal a bit and look at the things prior to that moment that ultimately led to Holland's downfall, of which I have boiled down to 2 key factors. The first strike was the lip sync between the Countess and Ivy Elise Monroe, which at first might not necessarily seem related to Keta Minaj. I mean, it's not directly related, but we'll bring up why it correlates later. So, the Countess and Ivy Elise Monroe lip synced for their lives to Free Your Mind by En Vogue in episode 4, after they competed in that season's Rusical. And dare I say, in a vacuum, This is a dictionary definition assassination. Ivy Elise Monroe, in an effort to capture the energy of the song, had an explosive aura, and absolutely lip-synced circles around the Countess, who simply walked in circles. However, the Countess infamously stayed, and Ivy Elise Monroe was eliminated. Why is that? The point of contention here was track record. Episode 4 was the Countess's first time lip-syncing, and she had a win under her belt to boot, while it was Ivy Elise's third time lip-syncing. Now, we've had this situation occur on Drag Race before, where a queen who might have done better than the other in a lip-sync still gets eliminated because of track record. La Shiva versus Morgana Cosmica is a big one that comes to mind. But assuming that those lip-sync outcomes were determined by track record is only speculation, mere conspiracy theories than anything. In Holland 2, however, it's literally said out loud by the host Fred Van Leer himself that track record was the reason the Countess stayed.
Je bent echt met de hakken over de sloot, omdat het de eerste keer was dat je in de lipsync stond en je hebt gewoon heel veel looks goed geneeld.
Quote, you only just made it because it was your first lip sync and you nailed a lot of looks. Keep those words at the back of your mind because we're coming back to them. The second strike prior to Keta's elimination that led to Holland's downfall was, of course, Vivaldi's infamous iPhone gate. In episode 6 of Holland 2, Vivaldi and soon-to-be crowned queen of that season, Vanessa Van Cartier, got into a heated argument after filming that week's improv challenge. For the sake of time, we won't get into how the argument started, but what is interesting here is the outcome of the fight. As these two are getting into it in the workroom, Vanessa Van Cartier drops a bomb that nobody sees coming.
Okay.
Ja? Gaan we het hebben over de telefoon? Wil je het hebben over de telefoon dat je hebt weggestopt? Nee, beter van niet.
Vanessa exposes that Vivaldi had a phone secretly in her possession while filming when it is clearly stated in their contract that that is not allowed. It can go without saying, but clearly having a phone in a competition of this caliber creates such an advantage in one queen's favor, which Tabitha promptly points out in a confessional soon after the confrontation.
Als je je telefoon hebt, kun je dingen opzoeken. Je kan bijvoorbeeld inspiratiedingen kan je opzoeken. Je kunt die dingen voorbereiden. Je kunt mensen bellen. Dus het mag gewoon niet. Het staat erop, moet je voor tekenen.
Situations like this might call for severe consequences, a disqualification some fans might argue, because it objectively tilts the favor into one queen's hand and out of the others. What punishment then did Vivaldi receive?
Je looks zijn fantastisch. Alleen ik kan het niet aan me voorbij laten gaan wat er is gebeurd. Dus je zult nu zelf moeten vechten voor je plek. Dus laat zien dat je straks echt lip-synct for your life.
Yep. Instead of disqualification, Vivaldi was asked to lip-sync for her life. Which, fine, I guess it's something, but nonetheless, she sends Tabitha home in her wake. Though Tabitha going home here is not important to the context of Keta Minaj's elimination, Vivaldi staying is. That sets the scene for the chaos that is going to ensue, which leads us to the fateful episode 7, the episode entitled Whodunit. This episode saw a written acting challenge where the top 4 queens were tasked in performing in a murder mystery. Soon-to-be runner-up of the season, My Little Pony, won the challenge. Vanessa Van Cartier was declared safe, leaving a bottom 2 of Keta Minaj, a very apparent frontrunner, and Vivaldi, our aforementioned phone-having queen. Preconceived notions would indicate that this is Vivaldi's time to go. Not only is it her second time lip-syncing, but she also got herself into a lot of trouble the week prior for very blatantly breaking the rules. And now that she was going up against the frontrunner of the season right before the finale, all the signs were kind of pointing to her departure. The lip sync to Don't Stop Me Now by Queen was nothing special. It was apparent, for example, that both of the queens were struggling with the words. I mean, I guess Vivaldi did marginally better than Keta in this performance, but again, it still seemed that Keta would stay because the idea of her even being potentially eliminated was so preposterous and absurd, especially after Fred set the precedent in episode 4 that a queen could and would be saved because of her track record. So the lip sync ends and Fred announces the winner.
Vivaldi. Beste meid, het is nog niet jouw tijd. Chanté, you stay.
Flames erupt through the land. Earthquakes thunder through the tectonic plates. Fred Van Leer, making this decision, was and is one of the most infamous decisions in Drag Race history. It was the elimination heard around the world. And as I said earlier, it was the final straw that broke the camel's back. Whatever faith fans had left in Drag Race Holland, this moment forfeited it. It crushed it. This can be easily identified and supported by the 2.3 out of 10 points that this episode has on IMDb. Heretofore, the lowest rated episode of Drag Race ever across any franchise. Fans, myself included, were pissed. And that is because of the reasons I listed earlier. Namely, Fred had bent his back to save the Countess despite evidently losing the lip sync to Ivy Elise Monroe because it was her, quote, first time lip syncing, establishing that he had the power to make that decision for those reasons. Now, let's be clear. The Countess honestly should have been eliminated against Ivy Elise Monroe because she easily lost that lip sync. I recognize that. In fact, that is the decision I would have made. But her being saved for her track record solidified that that is something that can happen in this season. So, while further down the line, I may sound like I'm coming off as, well, track record should matter in a lip sync, I'm not. But I am saying that this season established itself as one that takes track record into consideration. So I'm just going along with that rule set that Holland set in place. Get it? Got it? Good. But anyways, Fred's decision regarding the Countess showed that even if you underperform in a lip sync, extraneous circumstances can save you. However, Fred chose not to exercise that power here. This was Keta's first time lip syncing after establishing herself with 3 challenge wins and 2 high placements. One of the best track records of that year and I think of all time. But apparently that wasn't enough for the host, and instead he chose to undermine the established precedents of the season. What added salt to the wound was his choice not to exercise that power to save Keta, even when she was in the bottom with a queen who had effectively broken the rules of the competition. I said earlier that Holland 2 established a queen can be saved under extraneous circumstances. I'm sorry, but to me, lip syncing against a queen who was in her second time in the bottom and who on any other season would have gotten disqualified while having the best track record is extraneous circumstances if I've ever heard it. But unfortunately, for some reason, that rule did not apply to Keta like it did for the Countess, or even Vivaldi for that matter. And that double standard solidified the franchise's fate. It wasn't long after that hopes for season 3 died off. Once the season finished airing, no word of casting opened. Fred Van Leer went on to do other projects, the girls from season 1 and season 2 went on to find their own paths, and the world moved on. Though there's never been an official statement about the franchise's cancellation, that's widely regarded as its status. The elimination of Keta Minaj, in tandem with all the other factors of favoritism, double standards, etc., was too much for the franchise to survive and too much for the fans to continue to support. Now, nothing is 100% forever, especially not with Drag Race. After all, we saw Drag Race Thailand get greenlit for a season 3 after an almost 5-year hiatus, thanks to the mobilization and worldwide star power of Pangina Heels. Who knows, maybe somewhere down the line, there will be a queen from Holland who gains such international acclaim after competing on Versus the World or Global All-Stars that they'll single-handedly revive Drag Race Holland. Some of that hope was ignited when it was revealed that Keta Minaj would compete on UK Versus the World Season 2. Many fans, again myself included, thought this would be the moment for Keta to reclaim her time and honestly reclaim her crown. And with that, perhaps the mobilization to revitalize Drag Race Holland? Unfortunately, that is not how it worked out. Keta, though having one challenge win, finished the season with only 8th place, which was shocking, but I don't think she made as big of a splash as her other UK vs. the World international counterparts like La Grande Dame or Marina Summers, and in some ways Arantxa. But as it stands now, Drag Race Holland is an unconscious franchise, knocked out by one too many strikes. The most offensive of which was KETA'S dismissal. I know I might sound like a broken record, but I have to say again that elimination might go down as one of, if not the most upsetting elimination in Drag Race history. And it's really unfortunate to see the fate that befell her on UK vs. The World. But I honestly don't think this is going to be the last we'll see of Keta. I really don't. She is too big a talent for this to be the last time we'll ever see her. But yeah, that was a very quick flyover of the elimination of Keta Minaj on Drag Race Holland 2. Now, I do want to say that I do hope the best for all of the Holland queens, and yes, that does include Vivaldi and the Countess. I know I spent most of this video arguing that they should have gone home earlier, but I hold no ill will for either of them. In fact, I think they are some of the most talented queens of Drag Race ever. The Countess literally has one of my favorite runway looks of all time, and I would love for either of them to come back for Versus the World or Global All-Stars. And perhaps most importantly, I recognize the circumstances that they experienced on Holland 2 were completely out of their control. It's just unfortunate that this was the product that came forth from those circumstances. But with that being said, please go give all of the queens of Drag Race Holland Season 1 and Season 2 some love on social media. Or if you live in their areas, make sure you go and see them perform if you can. They deserve our love as much as any drag artist does, and without them, we would not have this iconically messy season. And with all of that being said, please don't forget that I am just a gay person talking on the internet.